program is supported by SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining us. Here are the headlines.
World leader not showing up.
Attention turned Wednesday to how the world will pay for its plan to decarbonize and help vulnerable nations survive climate change after a world leaders summit at the COP26 that yielded a landmark methane slashing deal.
Children in the Philippines receive vaccines against COVID-19 as the nation rolls out 12.7 million jabs for young people aged 12 to 17.
A 4-year-old Australian girl abducted from a campsite 18 days ago was discovered alive and well during a raid on a locked house Wednesday, telling her shocked and elated rescuers, "My name is Cleo."
And the worldwide aid to humanity in different parts of the globe continues.
Countries issued a landmark pledge to slash their methane emissions this decade. Nearly 100 nations joined a United States and European Union initiative to cut emissions of methane, a potent greenhouse gas, by at least 30% this decade, with China among notable absentees. Now, the initiative, which experts say could have a powerful short-term impact on global heating, followed an announcement earlier on Tuesday at the summit in Glasgow, in which more than 100 nations agreed to end deforestation by 2030. Take a look.
So cutting back on methane emissions is one of the most effective things we can do to reduce near-term global warming and keep 1.5 degrees Celsius. It is the lowest hanging fruit.
It's 20 to 80 times more destructive than CO2. It is fully responsible for 0.5 degrees of the warming of the 1.1 we're at today. And with this initiative, you're making it possible for us, if we achieve our goal, to be able to lower the warming by 0.2 degrees.
But the fact that China, trying to assert, understandably, a new role in the world as a world leader, not showing up, come on. The single most important thing that's gotten the attention of the world is climate. Everywhere. From Iceland to Australia, it just is a gigantic issue. And they've walked away. How do you do that and claim to be able to have any leadership mantle? The same with Putin and Russia. The race is very close. So it's about who shows up, who turns out. And granted, I did win by a large margin. But the point of the matter is that I think that this is going to be, we all knew from the beginning, this is going to be a tight race.
The initiative, which experts say could have a powerful short-term impact on global heating, followed an announcement earlier on Tuesday at the summit in Glasgow, in which more than 100 nations agreed to end deforestation by 2030. However, President Biden criticized the decision of China's President Xi Jinping, whose economy is the largest overall emitter, not to attend the summit, kicking off the 13-day climate negotiations.
China hit back against criticism by U.S. President Joe Biden, who had accused Beijing of not showing leadership after President Xi Jinping skipped the make-or-break COP26 United Nations Summit in Glasgow.
应对气候变化需要的是切实行动，而不是空洞的语言。中国应对气候变化的行动是实实在在的。 中美曾共同努力促成巴黎协定，却因为美国曾经放弃，影响了全球气候治理和协定的全面有效实施。中方也愿与各方一道，共同推动 全球非二氧化碳温室气体的减排合作。但是同时，在确立有雄心的目标时，也需要照顾和考虑发展中国家普遍在非二氧化碳温室气体管控方面存在基础数据薄弱、监测技术和有效措施缺乏等方面的实际问题。
He also made a jibe at Washington by adding that the United States pulling out of the Paris Agreement under Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, had harmed global climate governance and the implementation of the accord. Biden has apologized for Trump's decision.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Tuesday he was cautiously optimistic about progress made in Glasgow so far. Take a look.
So as this first stage of the COP26 draws to a close, and don't forget, there are still 2 weeks of detailed negotiation to come, we must take care to guard against false hope and not to think in any way that the job is done, because it is not. There is still a very long way to go. But all that being said, I am cautiously optimistic.
Earlier on Tuesday, countries made a multi-billion-dollar pledge to end deforestation by 2030, but the promise was met with skepticism from environmental groups, and although details were sparse, it appeared to largely resemble an earlier pledge. The British government said that the plan to drum up around $20 billion in public and private funding had been endorsed by more than 100 leaders representing over 85% of Earth's forests, including the Amazon rainforest. In Glasgow, the UN gathering's headline ambition is to limit temperature rises to 1.5 degrees Celsius, down from the 2.0 degrees target hatched at Paris in 2015.
Attention turned Wednesday to how the world will pay for its plan to decarbonize and help vulnerable nations survive climate change after a world leader summit at COP26 that yielded a landmark methane slashing deal. Negotiators are in Glasgow to try to keep the Paris Agreement temperature goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach. Finance is a crucial part of the picture, with vulnerable nations demanding that rich emitters make good on a decade-old promise to provide $100 billion annually to help. British Chancellor Rishi Sunak said the COP26 would finally deliver the funds. Take a look.
The United Kingdom will commit £100 million to the Task Force on Access to Climate Finance, making it quicker and easier for developing countries to access the finance they need. And we're supporting a new capital markets mechanism, which will issue billions of new green bonds here in the UK to fund renewable energy in developing countries. That the UK will go further and become the first ever net zero aligned financial centre. This means we are going to move towards making it mandatory for firms to publish a clear, deliverable plan setting out how they will decarbonise and transition to net zero, with an independent task force to define what's required. 6 years ago, Paris set the ambition. Today in Glasgow, we're providing the investment we need to deliver that ambition.
It's a global transition for which we have an estimated price tag. Some have put the global figure between $100 and $150 trillion over the next 3 decades. At the same time, addressing climate change is the greatest economic opportunity of our time. The gap between what governments have and what the world needs is large, and the private sector needs to play a bigger role. The old notions of why the private sector should decarbonize, because planet must be put before profit, are no longer universally true. Many renewables are now cheaper than carbon-based fuel alternatives and have lower long-term operating costs.
The Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, made up of more than 450 banks and asset managers, says it represents assets totaling $130 trillion. Finance is fundamental for developing countries who say they cannot afford the green transition taking place in richer nations. Countries that have already suffered economic losses from supercharged storms or crop failures due to climate change are also desperate for separate loss and damage cash to help them recover. Delegations will spend the next 12 days thrashing out details of the Paris Agreement rulebook, including rules governing carbon markets and a unified stocktake on emissions cutting plans.
Welcome to COP26 Finance Day.
Meanwhile, the ongoing United Nations Climate Change Conference 26, or COP26, is the last best hope of Earth in the face of human-induced climate change, according to Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr., as he joined urgent calls to finalize the Paris Agreement rulebook. Now, this is the world's last-ditch effort to save the planet. Let's get that Paris rulebook done. Succeeding COPs will be fine-tuning solutions or accelerating them, Locsin said at the climate summit that kicked off in Glasgow, Scotland on October 31st. Locsin noted that countries with a greater capacity to absorb the brunt of hard solutions must take them and help those with less capacity. He also reiterated President Duterte's previous appeal to developed countries to fulfill their long-standing commitment to climate financing, technology transfer, and capacity building in the developing world.
Pockets of famine have been reported in southern Madagascar, the UN World Food Programme said on Tuesday, as the country braces for the lean season. In addition to the most intense drought in 40 years, the WFP said that more than 1.3 million Malagasy people face crisis levels of food insecurity or worse.
Because of the drought, because of the sandstorms, this is a new phenomenon that has manifested itself in the last couple of years. Prices are skyrocketing because of the very poor agricultural production, and people do not have enough food to eat. They do not have enough money to have access to the food, and malnutrition rates are augmenting. These people have not contributed to climate change, but they're paying probably the highest price.
He described the emergency as maybe the first climate change famine on Earth. Latest data and forecasts indicate that the most vulnerable at risk of famine number some 30,000 between now and the end of the year. The WFP official noted that in addition to high prices and staggering inflation, that there was a new phenomenon of bandits ravaging the affected southern region. To provide emergency aid for the next 6 months, the agency has appealed for $69 million.
Meanwhile, the Cumbre Vieja volcano continues to spew lava and ash more than 1 month and a half after it first erupted on Spain's island of La Palma. Take a look. The flows of lava have destroyed more than 2,500 buildings, and according to the Smithsonian Magazine, the volcano is currently still active and has continued to inflict chaos and pose a threat to the archipelago. After scorching more than 2,000 acres of land, including residential areas, thousands of people had to flee, according to CBS News, and those who have stayed on the island are at risk for earthquakes, lava flows, acid rain, toxic gases, and ash. La Palma has been erupting for more than 6 weeks and still shows no signs of stopping. As seismic activity continues to increase, La Palma could be hit with an earthquake measuring a 6 on the Richter magnitude scale, reports Guillermo Vega and Ana Torres Menargues for El Pais. Just 1 week ago, a sixth lava vent opened up and part of the volcano's cone collapsed, causing more magma to overflow.
At the foot of an Icelandic volcano, a newly opened plant makes rocks from carbon dioxide sucked from the air, trapping the main gas responsible for global warming. The Orca facility, whose name is based on the Icelandic word for energy, does its cutting-edge work at the Hellisheidi geothermal power plant in southwest Iceland. Take a look.
Alors, une fois que le dioxyde de carbone est capté, on va le dissoudre dans de l'eau. Et ici, on est sur le site d'injection. Donc, le dioxyde de carbone qui est dissous dans l'eau, il va arriver par ce tuyau-là jusqu'à rentrer dans le puits où il va être injecté dans la roche volcanique à une profondeur entre 800 et 2 km de profondeur.
France's ambassador to Canberra labels the dumping of a decade-old multi-billion-dollar submarine deal a stab in the back, accusing Prime Minister Scott Morrison of being intentionally deceitful. Jean-Pierre Thebault adds that Australia-France row reached an unprecedented new low when a text message from the French president to Australia's leader was leaked. Take a look.
The deceit was intentional. And because there was far more at stake than providing submarines, because it was a common agreement on sovereignty, sealed with the transmission of highly classified data, the way it was handled was plainly a stab in the back.
Emmanuel Macron sent a message to Prime Minister Scott Morrison 2 days before Australia announced that it had torn up a decade-old multi-billion-dollar contract with France to build a new fleet of submarines. Paris reacted furiously, and Macron added to the furor at the weekend by accusing Morrison of lying to him, a charge the Australian has batted away. Reports said the leak could have been engineered by Morrison's office in retaliation for the lying charge. Australia announced in mid-September it was abandoning the French diesel submarines in favor of nuclear-powered submarines as it joined a new defense alliance with Britain and the United States, dubbed AUKUS. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ngayong quarantine, hindi mo na ako lumalabas ng bahay.
Gigi Pre!
Dapat, health is wealth.
Hindi nga pala.
Huwag mo makalimutan yung social distancing.
Ikaw na kailangan mo. Sinimus nga yung lumayo.
Ako yata magkakasait sa joke mo. Tawanan lang, walang ubuhan. Funniest nakaball videos!
Dito nyo lang unang maririnig. Breaking news.
Talagang napag-isipan ninyo, wag na pong tumakbo.
Si Mayor Sara ay tatakbo, I will seriously consider.
Patli, meron mas maganda pang mechanism para matulungan natin yung ating mga super. Ito yung Pantawid Pasada Program.
Ano sa palagay ninyo? Suspindihin muna yung excise tax on fuel o kawalan naman ng 131.4 billion sa government revenues na pandemic response natin yan sa 2022.
Mga isyong siguradong tatatak sa inyong umaga.
So yan,
Better Stories.
sabi nga mawalan ka na ng kuryente, huwag ka lang mawalan ng tubig.
Ako, I agree. Paano ka maglilinis? Paano ka maliligo? Doon
Correct.
talaga nag-uumpisa ang sakit.
Sige nga, pakwento nga dito sa talinong angkin nitong COVID-19 na to.
Una, walang utak yung COVID-19 na yan. Dapat mas mautak tayo.
Gaano karami po ba ang nadagdag sa ating populasyon na tulad ng inaasahan natin?
Ito ay mas mababa kaysa nung 2019.
Sila ang source ng pinag-uusapan ngayon. ASPN.
Bawal ang bata except for yung essential travel or for work, hindi ba?
Maaasahan ho ba na ating mga healthcare workers na bago po magtapos ang taon, yung kanilang mga benepisyo po ay maibibigay na po sa kanila?
Yung ibang mga opisyal, naroon pa rin sila at nakaupo pa rin sa PhilHealth. Have they been administratively charged?
May mga kaso na ito.
Sa DICT, all the LGUs, as long as nagpabakuna ka, binibigay nila yung record na yon sa DICT.
Ano sa palagay nyo? Kasama sina Ali Soto at Pat Pidaza.
Ibig sabihin po, ang pamahalaan ay hindi maaring makialam.
Then gusto mo parang may emergency intervention. Ang gobyerno pwede humimasok. Talaga bang totoo, isasarado muna ang Dolomite Beach?
Yes, sarado na po siya until November 3. We're trying to look at it kung paano naman namin kakasuhan din pabalik itong kusyana na ito.
Salamat po sa inyo, sa inyong suporta sa PNP at para sa ating mga pulisan.
Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga. Simulcast sa Net25.
Kasi pag kumuhay ka ng ganyan, kumakalembang yung mga dito mo.
DZEC 1062 Mega Manila. Eagle FM 95.5. Facebook at YouTube.
Welcome back to the news. The Department of Health on Wednesday logged 1,591 new cases of COVID-19, the lowest single-day number of infections in nearly 8 months. In its daily COVID-19 bulletin, the agency said this brought the total number of confirmed infections in the country to 2,793,898. The active case tally, meanwhile, further dipped to 38,014, lower than Tuesday's 40,786. Wednesday's new cases are slightly higher than the 1,557 infections recorded on February 24 this year. This is also the second consecutive day that daily new COVID-19 cases in the country are below the 3,000 mark since May 23, with only 2,303 cases reported on Tuesday. Another 4,294 new recoveries were also recorded, pushing the total tally to 2,712,298. Meanwhile, the death toll rose to 43,586 with 186 new deaths.
Meanwhile, children in the Philippines received vaccines against COVID-19 as the nation rolls out 12.7 million jabs for young people aged 12 to 17. Take a look.
Now we can probably go out of town, do the usual things that we used to do. Not necessarily the same things, but, somewhere in between those things that we used to do before, like dine out and, stuff like that.
I've always been so scared of this virus. I was afraid that just as soon as I step outside the house, I would just instantly get the virus, and I might get my whole family in danger. So I'm just relieved right now that I'm finally getting vaccinated.
On October 15, the government started the vaccination of children aged 12 to 17 years old with comorbidities. As of November 2, a total of 40,419 minors with comorbidities have received their life-saving shots. The nationwide vaccination for the rest of the pediatric population aged 12 to 17 formally started on Wednesday. It has a target population of 12,722,070, of which about 1,272,207 have comorbidities.
The first groups of children aged 5 to 11 in the United States received their Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccination shots at Hartford Healthcare in Connecticut on Tuesday. Take a look.
It doesn't really hurt, but do it for the sake of America, because it's helping America in the world, so life is better for each and every person on Earth.
I can go a lot of places now, I can go to baseball games, I can go to hockey games, I can go to movie theaters. It's all, one step closer to getting fully vaccinated.
Based on the decision of the CDC and the FDA and working with ACIP, we were able to expand the population that is eligible for vaccination by about 28 million. By getting approval for individuals that are 5 to 11.
The United States can now start giving children aged 5 to 11 the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID vaccine, according to U.S. health authorities, in a move hailed by President Joe Biden as a turning point in the fight against the pandemic. The vaccine will still be given in 2 injections, 3 weeks apart. The dosage has been adjusted to 10 micrograms per injection compared to 30 micrograms for the older age groups. There have been more than 1.9 million cases of COVID-19 among 5 to 11-year-olds in the United States, and more than 8,300 hospitalizations, more than 2,300 cases of pediatric multi-system inflammatory syndrome, and about 100 deaths. The expected benefits of vaccinating children also include fewer school closures and a possible reduction in transmission of the epidemic into the general population.
The Department of Education, or DepEd, Secretary Leonor Briones on Wednesday said the department has completed the 100 public schools that will participate in the pilot implementation of limited face-to-face classes beginning November 15. Take a look.
Wakas, pagpatuloy na natin ang ating na limited face-to-face tulad ng napag-usapan at instruction ng President. Mag-umpisa tayo with 100 public schools, 20 private schools at ilang mga international schools na may sarili naman silang mga patakaran. So all set na for November 15. Nabuo na natin yung 100 public schools at binubuo na ngayon ang 20 private schools. At kami naman for our part sa Department of Education, ini-inspect namin ang mga napipiling eskwelahan na kailangan handa yung ating mga facilities, ang social distancing, may tubig, may gamot, malapit tayo sa mga health stations. At saka finally, kailangan na may risk assessment na galing sa Department of Health.
The Iglesia Ni Cristo launched an aid to humanity in Hong Kong. Here's Kit Wong for the details.
The Church of Christ Iglesia Ni Cristo once again held an aid to humanity here in Hong Kong.
Giving to those in need is continuously upheld by the members of the Church of Christ. Brethren in the District of Hong Kong conducts aid to humanity by giving goodie bags filled with essential commodities such as hand sanitizer, soap, and food packs. This event was held in all local congregations in Hong Kong Special Administrative Region through the supervision of ministers and church officers. Members enthusiastically invited their friends and loved ones to be their guests in the said event. They all diligently follows the safety protocols set by the government. The giving of aid does not only end by giving essential things. For the members of the Church of Christ, the most important thing to provide is to share the words of God from the Bible. An evangelical mission was conducted by the district supervising minister, Brother Ernel Chinide. For a decade, aid to humanity is being conducted in different parts of the world. An initiative promoting love and humanity led by the executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manano.
On behalf of the brethren here in the local congregation of Hong Kong East, we would like to thank our guests who have witnessed and also listened to the teachings of the Bible. That is the fundamental doctrines of the Church of Christ. And as our guests, we also gave them gifts because we are also commemorating and we are celebrating the birth anniversary or the birthday of our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. That is why our guests are happy to receive their gifts, and so are the brethren. And we are truly once again united with the whole church in celebrating and in commemorating the birthday of our executive minister. And we would also like to thank and continue to urge the brethren all over the world to continue to help sharing our faith in the Church of Christ.
Reaching out to those in need wherever your race, regardless of religious affiliation, the Church of Christ continue to uphold the teaching of the Bible to open hand for help, especially those who were affected by calamities. disasters and set by stress and worries like this time of pandemic.
Afternoon po, kami po bilang mga may tungkulin dito sa lokal ng Hong Kong East ay masayang-masaya po sa ginawang aktibidad sa araw na ito na Aid for Humanity. At masaya po dahil marami po kaming naging bisita at yung mga bisita namin ay naging masayang-masaya po sila. At bilang mga may tungkulin, nangangako po kami na patuloy na pangungunahan ang aming mga kapatid na nasasakupan na lalong magtalaga po sa sinasagawang aktibidad sa loob ng Iglesia ni Cristo na inauna po ng ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan. Salamat po.
Salamat po. From Hong Kong, this is Kate Wong reporting for Eagle News, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Kit. Live and well, the news Cleo Smith's parents have been waiting for more than 2 weeks now. A 4-year-old Australian girl abducted from a campsite 18 days ago was discovered alive and well during a raid on a locked house on Wednesday, telling her shocked and elated rescuers, "My name is Cleo." Take a look.
This girl. What a great day. We now have returned Cleo to her loving parents. It's a wonderful day for this little girl and her loving family. It is a really special day for Western Australia. Indeed, I know the nation is rejoicing. That commenced an enormous operation to the outcome that was achieved at about 1 a.m. this morning, when 4 officers went in and broke down the door and found little Cleo in a room. And as you can see, she's alive, she's safe, and she's back with Mum and Dad. We have one 36-year-old man in custody. He is assisting police with our inquiries at the moment. I'm not going to elaborate further in terms of that man, other than saying he's a local man from Carnarvon, and we will be having something further to say later.
Well, I asked her what her name was. One of the guys jumped in front of me and picked her up, and I just wanted to be absolutely sure that, it certainly looked like Cleo. I wanted to be absolutely sure it was her, so I said, "What's your name?" And she didn't answer, and I said, "What's your name?" She didn't answer again, so I asked her a third time, and then she looked at me and she said, "My name's Cleo." And it was... Are you okay? We're going to take you to see your mummy and daddy, okay? Is that good? It was more or less that we were talking to her than she was talking to us, but can I say, having seen her a couple of times this morning, she's a little Energizer bunny, and how she has that much energy, I wish I did. I'm about ready to go to sleep, but she was, so just a very, very sweet, energetic girl, very, very trusting and very open with us. We wanted to take turns in holding her. It was a really good experience.
The 4-year-old has vanished from her family's tent while camping in the western Australian coast, but the zipper on the compartment where she and her sister were sleeping was too high for her to have reached it. Now, that sparked one of the biggest operations in the area with extensive air, land, and sea searches. Police last month had offered $1 million Australian dollars reward for information leading to Cleo's recovery after she was feared abducted from the remote blowholes campsite about 1,000 kilometers north of Perth on October 16. Her mother, Ellie, took to social media to express her relief. "Our family is whole again," she posted on Instagram under a photo of Cleo. Police later released an image of the beaming youngster on a hospital bed, holding an ice pop, waving and smiling. Officers said she was in good spirits and bouncing around like a little Energizer bunny. A 36-year-old local man has now been detained and is said to be assisting with inquiries. He is expected to be charged later Wednesday. It is believed the abduction was unplanned and opportunistic. The suspect was not on a local list of sex offenders and only became a person of interest a day ago. Cleo's family live in Carnarvon, and the house she was found in on Wednesday morning was just a 7-minute drive from her family's home. Thank
Good news
goodness.
indeed.
Yes.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. The news continues tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live
in interesting times.
This program is supported by SMC Global Power,